What's up everybody, welcome back to the Malifaux Lore Guide. This week we're talking about Sandeep of the Arcanists. So spoilers for all of Sandeep's stories, and you can find a list of those stories in the description below. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel to show your support and keep the channel going. And with that, let's get into Sandeep. Sandeep grew up in guild-occupied India, and he was orphaned at a young age. He lived in a temple, where he was given an opportunity to study, and he proved to be an excellent student. He read books on the arcane, and soon became a powerful magic user. Sandeep shows his teacher a letter that he got from Victor Ramos, inviting him to come to Malifaux and teach magic. The teacher responds that Sandeep is not ready, and Sandeep shoots back that he's a powerful magic user who is able to bind Gaiman, and he has written many papers on the subject. The teacher explains that that's not what he meant, and that Malifaux is a place that corrupts people, and Sandeep will not be able to resist its effects. Sandeep remarks that they should be resisting the guild, and the teacher explains that he has organized boycotts and strikes, but Sandeep interjects that boycotts will do nothing against guild bullets, and that if he were to go to Malifaux, he could become more powerful and fight back against the guild directly. At that, the teacher hands him his gada, a mace-like weapon, and as soon as Sandeep holds it, he gets nauseous and the world starts spinning. He hears a voice in his head commanding him to strike the old man down, and he feels himself compelled to do so, but is able to resist and throws the weapon to the ground. Sandeep remarks that he can't believe his master has been able to carry this weapon for so many years without giving in, and the teacher explains that the gada is possessed by Banasuva, a being of fire and anger, and that he feeds off anger, so if you don't give him any kindling, he won't be able to exert his power over you. At that, another student named Matol approaches the two men and explains to the teacher that an envoy from the guild is requesting his presence. They go inside and find a magistrate surrounded by several guild riflemen. The magistrate explains to the teacher that he has been tried in absentia and convicted of conspiring with anti-guild elements. Before anyone can react, one of the riflemen raises his gun and shoots him in the chest. The magistrate orders the riflemen to round up the rest of the students, and several of the students attack the guild as the rest try to flee. Sandeep rushes towards his teacher and sees Matol across the room being dragged out by the guild. When he gets to the teacher's body, the man tells him to run away as there's nothing he can do here, but Sandeep picks up the gada and then raises it over his head and slams it into the ground. The ground shakes and fire erupts as a blue humanoid creature materializes. It thanks Sandeep for freeing him and asks what he can do to help. Sandeep tells him to burn anyone in a guild uniform, and Banasuva raises its hands and fire shoots out in all directions. 6 years later, and Sandeep is in Malifaux, where he seeks out one of his students named Kudra. She invites him inside for tea, and he comments on her excellent work that she's been doing in their classes recently, and she replies that she wishes they didn't have to have classes in secret in the basement of the Star Theater. Sandeep agrees, and then takes out the gada, and Kudra comments that she hopes he is not feeling angry. He explains that he hasn't felt that way in a long time, as it only leads to ashes and sorrow. He explains to her that one of his former classmates, Matol, is being held by the guild, and that he needs her help in freeing him. She asks what good she will be able to do, as he is the teacher and is more powerful, and he replies that the man is being held in an unusual place, a safe house in the quarantine zone, and that it is covered in runes that prevent the use of magic. Kudra points out that this sounds like a perfect trap for Sandeep, and he agrees, but points out that he has seen her fight and that he needs her to take out some of the guards. He asks to confirm that the cobras that she keeps are not magical in nature, and she replies that they are only flesh and blood. Later, the two are making their way towards the quarantine zone, and Kudra points out that she doesn't like resurrectionists. Sandeep responds that he burns members of the guild by summoning a demon, and that he is in no place to judge a man for the tools that they use. He goes on to explain that he and Von Stuck have a good relationship, and that he is the one who gave him his first book on necromancy. As they are walking, a creature jumps out of the shadows and attacks Kudra, but she deftly dodges, and then strikes back, kicking it and knocking it down. As it's about to attack again, Sandeep reaches up and says, "Calm, friend," as a blue glow emanates from his hand. The creature suddenly stops attacking, and Von Stuck steps out of the shadows and compliments him for not damaging his student. Sandeep greets the man, and Von Stuck looks to Kudra and asks if she has come here to join his university. Sandeep says no, and Von Stuck follows up, asking if he has any information on Molly Squidpidge. Sandeep replies that he wouldn't have come here without it, but that he needs a favor in return. He explains that he needs to borrow one of Von Stuck's students, particularly one who is fast and has experience dealing with the arcane. Von Stuck motions, and one of his undead creatures approaches, as Von Stuck explains that he had magical abilities in life and seems to have retained some of them. He asks what he knows about Molly, and Sandeep hands him a newspaper clipping with an article and points out the author, Polly Tortolin. Von Stuck comments that she must be writing under a pen name and that Seamus probably put her up to this, but seems pleased with the information. He looks to Kudra and reminds her to return in a week for the new semester, and she rolls her eyes as they walk away. Next, the pair go to visit a bookstore, and as the storekeeper named Emily approaches them, she recognizes Sandeep and comments that the books are not free. Sandeep replies that he believes all knowledge should be free and open to everyone, and she shoots back that that won't pay the bills. Sandeep asks her if she's kept up with her lockpicking skills, and she responds that selling books isn't enough to get her by. He then tells her that he's calling in a favor, and that he needs help on a job that will be difficult, but it'll make them even. She agrees, and he and Kudra leave, where she asks him why the woman owed him a favor. He responds that she used to be a librarian for the Free Corps, but that she was caught stealing from them, and he stepped in to save her life. Kudra asks how he managed to do that, and he tells her that he had dirt on one of her commanding officers, and explains that information can be used as a weapon if given the right opportunity. The next night, Sandeep, Kudra, and Emily make their way towards the quarantine zone until they find a building covered in strange runes with guild guards outside. Sandeep sees von Stuck's student in the shadows and leads the others into the sewer, where Kudra fights off 2 of the guards using her martial arts and her cobras. Emily picks a lock, and they move through a door where Sandeep and Kudra dispatch 2 more guards. Emily comments that everything is going very well, and Sandeep points out that that may not be a good sign. She picks the lock to another door, and Sandeep walks inside a well-lit room where he sees Matul sitting at a desk writing a letter. Suddenly, several guild guards begin approaching the room, and Kudra begins fighting them off before Sandeep tells her to stop and puts down his gada. Matul approaches, and Sandeep asks him when he was turned, and explains that he wishes he would have gotten here sooner in order to rescue him. Matul quickly kicks him in the chin and explains that he wasn't turned, and asks Sandeep who he thinks told the guild about their teacher's rebellious activity. He explains that he had encouraged the man to work with the guild to move towards progress, but that now he was dead, and soon Matul would be giving control over their entire home province back in India. Suddenly, the runes on the building glow brighter and then fade out completely. Sandeep starts to laugh and raises his hand as blue energy shoots out of his fingers, killing several of the guards. At the same time, Kudra jumps into action, attacking the nearby guards until none are left but Matul. The man asks how this is possible, as anyone who tried to dispel the runes would be killed in the process, and Sandeep replies that not all of his friends have to worry about such things as being alive. Matul produces a knife and lunges at Sandeep, but he parries the blow, disarming the man and breaking his arm. Sandeep tells Emily and Kudra to leave the room, and then retrieves the gada, as Matul begs for his life. He speaks to his dead mentor, and tells him that he's sorry he's going to disappoint him again, as he slams the gada into the ground, and fire erupts as Banasuva appears. He asks Sandeep what he wants, and Sandeep turns to walk away, and then responds, "Burn him." Holding his classes in secret, Sandeep teaches his students in the ways of manipulating the ether and the proper use of soulstones. His dedication to teaching has earned him a reputation among his students for his patience and calm, and when Victor Ramos was arrested and a schism formed in the Arcanists, Sandeep stayed neutral, attempting to mediate between both sides. While some people criticize him for being too passive, those that know him well, and especially those that have seen him in battle, know that behind that calm demeanor is a deadly and powerful opponent. Sandeep makes his way across the dirty and chaotic streets of Malifaux to his office that he views as a sanctuary. As he goes inside, he thinks about the good old days when he lived in peace and spent his time studying, and regrets that he now lives under the eyes of the guild and the constant danger and struggle. But on the other hand, sometimes academics have to become warriors. He suddenly hears a knock at the door and waits for the person to go away, as many people mistake his office for a nearby brothel. When the knock comes again, he calls out that they have the wrong house, but a voice responds, referring to Sandeep by name. He opens the door and sees a man from his home country who is obviously new to Malifaux and looks particularly fatigued. He introduces himself as Loeth Bot and explains that he has come a long way for Sandeep's help. Sandeep tries to brush him off, but the man insists that he is the only person who can help him with his problem with the spirits. Sandeep quickly pulls him inside and looks around for guild spies, and then tells the man that he shouldn't speak of such things out loud. Loeth explains that the spirits are haunting him and are causing a danger to him and his family, and asks Sandeep to help him for the sake of his daughter. At this, Sandeep invites him inside and offers him a cup of tea. The man explains that at first he only dreamt of the Gaiman, which is how it starts for most people who become summoners, but soon he was finding that they were manifesting themselves around him on a regular basis, and he was unable to control them. Sandeep is surprised to hear that a man who is untrained is able to summon a Gaiman, especially on Earth, where magic is more difficult to access. He grabs a soulstone and holds it out towards the man, explaining that they hold power, and that if he taps into it, he may be able to control the Gaiman. Loeth is hesitant and tells Sandeep that he does not want to control the Gaiman mind. He just wants them to go away. And Sandeep replies that we don't always get what we want, and sometimes we have to do our best with the gifts that we are given. He starts to explain to the man how to focus his energy and concentrate on controlling the Gaiman as the energy flows out of the Soul Stone and pulses through Lolth's body. A fire Gaiman appears, and Sandeep comments that one Gaiman is not a big deal, but Lolth starts screaming out in pain and collapses on the floor before passing out. As he does so, the energy from the Soul Stone shoots out from his body, and several more Gaiman manifest themselves around the room. Sandeep says that this might be more of a problem, and he grabs the man's body and drags him out of the building as he holds the Gaiman at bay. Once outside, he sees the building burning, and Lolth wakes up and apologizes profusely for bringing this curse upon Sandeep. Sandeep explains that they have to get out of here before the guild show up, but that he thinks he knows someone who they can speak to for help with stubborn spirits. He leads the man to a warehouse just outside of the quarantine zone and explains to him that the woman he's about to meet is extremely powerful and should be able to help him with his problem. However, if she doesn't like him, there can be no more heartless enemy. He mentions that they are lucky she's in the city, as she was driven out of the mountains by the spring rain. They enter the building and find it very cold, and as they get deeper inside, they sense movement. Sandeep calls out to Rasputina, explaining that they're here to talk, and that it's about something that might pique her interest. Her voice comes back, asking why he thinks she would be interested in a conversation, and the woman approaches, holding a small metal construct. Sandeep bows and compliments the woman, but she shoots back that last time she was in the city, the MNSU had her escorted directly out, under the pretenses that it was for her own protection. Sandeep asks her if she found anything interesting while she was going through her old master's stuff, and she responds that she only found clockwork trinkets, and that she prefers something with a little more spirit. After all, Ramos's toys failed him in the end. Sandeep is intrigued, and tells Rasputina that he knows she was the one that brought him to the place where he was ultimately captured, and he wonders if Rasputina knew about Ironside's plan. Rasputina sharply replies that she has no interest in the city's politics, and that she is only interested in power. She turns to Lolth and asks who his friend is, and Sandeep introduces the man and explains the predicament he finds himself in. Rasputina comments that most summoners find it hard to manifest even a weak Gaiman, and that he should appreciate the powers he is given. Lolth replies that he just wants his life back, and Sandeep explains that all power comes with a cost, and asks Rasputina if she wouldn't take a happy life with a family over the power she has. Rasputina shrugs the question, and Lolth explains that he wants to make that choice for himself. Rasputina replies that it might cost him his life, and the man tells her that right now he has no life. Rasputina agrees to help and asks them questions about how and when the Gaiman appear. Sandeep explains the incident with the Soul Stone and tells her it's best to keep him away from them for the time being, but Rasputina disagrees, explaining that hiding from the Gaiman will only encourage them and that he must face their power and learn to control it. She says they will go to face the source of his power and that they will need a boat as she leads them out the door, and then comments that she can't wait to get out of the city. Rasputina leads them down the river on a boat and explains to Sandeep that they are going to the Bastion Hills mine, a place that was abandoned by the guild because of a Gaiman infestation. He asks if it's wise to go to such a place, and Rasputina explains that Lolth must face his fears, and then comments that it might be Sandeep's own fears that he's worried about. Sandeep shoots back that there's a big difference between reasonable caution and fear, and Rasputina responds that the man risked his life by coming to Malifaux, and that Sandeep can learn from him. Sandeep feels his anger building as he touches his gata, but he resists the urge and pushes the feeling down. They begin hiking towards the mines and make their way through an abandoned mining town before finding the entrance to the cave. They trek deep into the abandoned mine until they find an open cavern with the remnants of a small soulstone vein. Sandeep comments that it's no wonder the guild abandoned the place, as there's very little stone to be mined, but Lolth explains that the power is calling to him. Sandeep is confused, but Rasputina explains that she also senses great power and trouble. Gaiman of darkness and earth begin appearing around the cavern and approaching the group. Rasputina tells Sandeep to bring Lolth to the vein and touch it so that he can tap into its power and gain control over the Gaiman, and meanwhile she will cover them. Sandeep leads the man towards the vein, fighting off the Gaiman and sensing Banasuva wanting to come forth and help, but he resists the temptation. When they make it to the vein, Sandeep stands in defense and tells Lolth to touch it to gain its power. The man complains that he doesn't want to be a fighter and that Sandeep is trying to force him, and Sandeep tells the man that none of us are fighters until we don't have any choice, but that if he wants to survive, that he's gonna have to fight now. Lolth touches the soulstone, and a much deeper vein reveals itself beyond the rocks. Lolth says that he understands now, as the Gaiman cease their attack, and Rasputina approaches. She asks him if he can sense the soulstone, and he tells her that it is deep and wide, and it's drawing him in. Sandeep begins telling him to bend its power to his will, but at the same time, Lolth starts being pulled into the stone. Sandeep tries to grab him, but he is repulsed, and soon Lolth's entire body has sunken into the wall like quicksand. Sandeep yells out, asking what they have done, and Rasputina simply responds that he wasn't strong enough. Sandeep begins explaining that they'll have to take the stone out and bring it back to Malifaux to be studied, but Rasputina says that they are out of time, as the energy begins flowing out of the soul stone and causing the Gaiman to grow more powerful. The witch shoots her magic up in the air, and rocks begin falling from the roof of the cave as the temperature drops, freezing some of the creatures and slowing their movement. Sandeep tries to stand and fight, and calls on the power of Banasuva, but he doesn't respond, and soon Sandeep is overwhelmed and has to retreat. The two make their way back out to the mouth of the cave, as Rasputina's power causes a cave-in, and they just barely make it to safety. Sandeep draws his gata, and accuses Rasputina of using Loth to try to gain her own power. Rasputina agrees, and tells Sandeep that he knew Loth was never going to control the Gaiman, and that the man was doomed as soon as he entered Malifaux. Sandeep tells her that he brought the man to her because he trusted her, and Rasputina responds that that was his mistake, as she walks away. Sandeep stands in front of the cave, seething with anger, for many hours before he returns to the boat. And that's everything for Sandeep. It's interesting that because he's new to the game, he has very few stories, but the 2 stories he's featured in are really long and meaty. I hope they're going to flesh out some of this in some of the upcoming stories, especially what happened with Banasuva, and how he pulled a Hulk there when stuff was really going down. Maybe he just doesn't like fighting against the Gaiman? I guess we'll have to see. I also would have loved to see how Sandeep would react if the Arcanists and the MNSU actually did split, but I guess maybe we'll never know on that one. But anyway, drop a comment below and let me know what master you want to see me do a video on next. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel to help get the channel exposed to more people, and thanks for watching.